Last episode, I handed you a rule and told you it was most of professional practice. Weak chart, add support. Strong chart, add drain. Today I'm going to show you the charts where that rule, followed correctly by someone who knows exactly what they're doing, will take a person apart. Because there's a category of chart, not many of them, but they exist, and statistically one of you watching this has one, where the day master is so outnumbered that helping it is the cruelest thing you can do to it, where support is poison, where the correct instruction is not get stronger, it's stop resisting. These are the Kongge, the following structures, and they're the reason I've been careful for 12 episodes to keep saying the word usually. Quick hello if we haven't met. I'm Jimmy, acupuncturist by trade, 20 years of it, and this channel exists because the diagnostic system I use on bodies turned out to be the same one this tradition uses on lives. Yin, Yang and the 5 elements, 2 maps, 1 engine. Let's go. Here's the picture you're carrying after last episode. A scale. Your day master on one side, everything that spends it on the other. Tip too far one way, add to the other. Balance. That model works because the day master has something to stand on. Now take that away. Picture a chart where your yin wood, a vine, and the other 7 characters are metal. Metal in the year. Metal in the month, which is the season, which by itself is 40% of the weight. Metal directly under your own feet. Metal in the hour, no water anywhere to feed you, no second piece of wood to stand beside you, and not one branch in the whole chart with a fragment of your own element hidden inside it. The textbook answer is extremely weak, needs water and wood. And in this chart, the textbook answer is wrong. Because a vine with 1 root and an axe overhead is in trouble. A vine with no root at all isn't in trouble, it isn't in the fight. And a thing that isn't in the fight can't lose it. What it can do instead is go with whatever is actually running the room. That's Kong. Follow. The day master stops trying to be itself and takes the dominant force as its nature. And when a chart does that cleanly, it isn't broken. It's one of the most concentrated, most effective shapes in the entire system. There are 4 you'll meet, named for what the chart hands itself to in 10 gods language. So if you skipped episode 8, that's the one to go back for. Kong Tiger, following wealth, the chart gives itself to money, assets, the material world. Kong Sha Ge, following authority. It gives itself to structure, hierarchy, discipline, the institution. Kong Er Ge, following output, literally following the child. It gives itself to what it makes, the craft, the work, the thing it expresses. And Kong Wang, sometimes called Juan Wang, the odd one that doesn't surrender to something else at all. That's a chart made almost entirely of 1 element with nothing left to argue with it. Those have the best names in the whole tradition and somebody should say them out loud. All wood is Kuji, bending and straight. All fire is Yan Shang, blazing upward. All earth, Jia Si, sowing and reaping. All metal, Kongge, yielding and changing. All water, Run Xia, moistening and descending. 5 shapes, each one named for how that element behaves when nothing in the chart is contradicting it. 1 prerequisite before the good part, and it's free. easternreading.com, 30 seconds, no sign up, links in the description, because the rest of this episode is a test you run on your own 8 characters, and I'd much rather you ran it than watch me run it. Go on, I'll be here not saying anything useful. Okay, 8 characters your own. Now I can be specific. A real following structure has to pass 3 tests, and it has to pass all 3. Fail 1 and you're an ordinary week chart. Last episode applies to you, and this episode is a story about somebody else. Test 1. No companion. Look at all 8 characters. Leave the day master itself out of it and ask whether any of them is your own element, not similar to it, the same as it. If there's even one, you have a teammate, and a chart with a teammate doesn't surrender. Test 2. No resource, nothing anywhere that produces your element. If you're wood, no water. If you're fire, no wood. Resource is the IV line, and as long as it's connected, the Daymaster is still being kept alive, and something being kept alive keeps fighting. Test 3, and this is the one people miss. No root. Root is not the same thing as companion. Root means a piece of your element buried inside a branch. Every branch has stems hidden in it. That's the part of this system nobody tells beginners about, because the surface of a chart is 8 characters, but the working depth is closer to 20. If your element is hiding down in any branch, you have a root and you do not follow. And here's why I'm making an entire point of the third one. Take the chart from episode 10. Yin Fire Daymaster, 1 fire in the whole chart, and it was him. 3 water including the month branch in winter, 2 metal, 0 companion. I said that on camera twice. By tests 1 and 2, that man is a following structure. He's got nothing to stand on. He should surrender to water and become a chart about authority. He doesn't. And the entire reason is one character I put a graphic on last episode and deliberately didn't finish explaining. The dog, Shu, an earth branch, sitting in his year pillar, and buried inside it is Yin Fire, his own element, underground, where nothing that's happened to him in 43 years could reach it. That card said the dog is a storage branch, the vault where fire is kept. That was the setup. This is the payoff. Weak, buried, unusable most of the time, and absolutely enough. And notice what else that chart has, because I showed you this one in episode 10 too. The rabbit and the dog pulling toward fire. There's a combination in his chart whose job is to reach down into that vault and open it. That's a root, and it's a root with something working to activate it. He is not a follow structure. He's a very weak ordinary chart, which means everything I prescribed last episode stands. He needs wood and fire. Support is medicine. 2026 is good news. Now flip one character, take the dog away, give him a rat in that spot instead. Still water, still cold, still the same story, and every word of that reverses. No root, follow structure, support becomes poison. The good year becomes a bad one. Same man, same 9/10 of a chart, opposite prescription. That's how narrow this call is, and it's why I'd rather you learn to hunt for the root than learn the vocabulary. Now let me show you one that does follow. Different person, read a few years back, and I've changed nothing except making sure you'll never know who he is. Yinwood Daymaster, born in the 8th month, Rooster, a pure metal season. Year Yang Earth over Monkey, Earth that feeds metal, sitting on metal. Month Yin Metal over Rooster, metal on metal, and this is the season, so it's the heaviest pillar in the chart. Day himself, Yinwood sitting on a rooster, metal directly under his own feet. Our Yin Metal over Snake. Count it with me, 5 metal, 1 earth, working for the metal, and exactly 1 piece of wood in the entire chart. Him. Test 1. Companion. There isn't a second wood anywhere. Passed. Test 2. Resource. There is no water on the surface of that chart at all. Now, if you go digging, the monkey has a drop of water buried inside it, and I'm telling you that because I'd rather you heard it from me. But a drop of water hidden inside a metal branch in a metal month with 5 metal characters standing on top of it is not an IV line. It's a rumour. Past. Test 3. Root, monkey, rooster, rooster, snake. Not one fragment of wood hiding in any of them. Passed and passed cleanly, which is the rare part. Unmetal to a wood day master is authority, guansha, the thing that controls you. Then the detail that closed it for me. Look at the one branch in that chart that isn't metal by nature, the snake in his hour. Remember half combinations from episode 9? Snake and rooster pull toward metal. He's got 2 roosters. So the single character in his chart that could have stood outside the metal gets recruited into it. That chart isn't just outnumbered, it's unanimous. 从下格, following authority. And his life read exactly like it. 22 years in a uniformed service, thrived, genuinely thrived, inside a hierarchy most people would describe as suffocating. Precise, disciplined, steady, under the kind of pressure that flattens other people. Every personality test he ever took came back telling him he was rigid. What he actually was correctly configured. He came to me because he'd been given advice, good advice from people who loved him. Go independent, start your own thing, stop letting the institution define you. Be more yourself. For 9/10 of the population, that's a decent sentence. For a following structure, it's an instruction to pick a fight with the only force holding the chart together. He tried it once, in his 30s, during a luck pillar that brought water, resource, support, the exact thing every beginner wants to see, and it was the worst 3 years of his life. The way he put it was, everything got soft. Which is the thing about these charts I want you to walk away with. In a following structure, the medicine and the poison change places. Resource, companion, support, independence, being more yourself. The entire vocabulary of self-help, all of it, is precisely what these charts don't need. What they need is something big enough to give themselves to. 3 moves for your own chart. 1. Run the 3 tests in order: companion, resource, root, and stop at the first yes. Most of you will stop at the first one, and that's the correct outcome. Not a disappointing one. It means last episode's rules are yours. 2. If you somehow pass all 3, find what's dominant. Not which element you have the most of, which 10 God group, wealth, authority, or output. That's what your chart follows, and it names the shape of a life that works for you. 3. Then go look at your luck pillars for the decade that brings your own element back or brings resource. In an ordinary chart, that decade is the good news. In a following structure, that's the decade to stay inside the structure, hold your position, and not believe it when everything gets soft. 3 things I'd rather you hear from me than from the comments. 1. These are rare, somewhere around 2 to 5% of charts, depending on who's counting and how strict they're being. And there's a real pull toward wanting one, because my chart breaks the normal rules is a much better story than my chart is a fairly ordinary, weak water chart. That pull is exactly the bias that manufactures a wrong reading. General rule: if you're not sure whether you have a follow structure, you don't. 2. The borderline case, Jia Kong, the false follow, is the single most argued about thing in classical BaZi. One microscopic root buried in a branch that's also being clashed by something else. Is that root alive or isn't it? Masters have disagreed about that in writing at length for centuries, and I'm not going to settle it in episode 13. What I'll tell you is what I actually do. When a chart is that close, I read it both ways, and then I ask the person which description sounds like their life. The chart is the hypothesis. The person is the evidence. 3, and I want to be very clear about this one, because your chart says give up is not what I said. Following is not surrendering your agency. A following structure is a chart whose direction of maximum leverage happens to point outward instead of inward. The man I just described made a long series of hard, deliberate, extremely willful decisions. He made them inside a structure instead of against one. That isn't passivity, that's aim. Next episode, I finally open the drawer I've kept shut since the beginning. Shen Shah, the symbolic stars, peach blossom, travelling horse, canopy, the colourful, memorable, wildly overused half of this system that every app on your phone leads with, and I've deliberately saved for last. There's a reason for that order, and next week you get it. If you never pulled it, easternreading.com, 30 seconds, and then this episode means something. Before the next video autoplays, 30 seconds in the comments. Run test 1 and test 2 only, and give me 3 things. Your day master element, whether you have any characters of your own element besides yourself, and whether you have any resource. Like this: yin fire, no companion, 1 resource. I want to see how many of you come back with 0 and 0, because by the math there should be a handful, and I'd genuinely like to know who you are. That's it from me. Go be suspicious of your own chart. See you next time.